All right, good evening. I'm trying to get my setup. I had to move last minute, so I'm kind of trying to get everything straightened up. We're gonna get started in like 2 minutes. All right, if you're joining me, say hey so I know you're here. Make sure we're working. I have got so many notes. Look at this. All those notes for you guys tonight. So I'll be kind of looking on them and making sure I stay on track because this is some really good information tonight. We're actually going to talk about cleanse and restore. I know that sounds totally boring, but it's actually kind of cool. We're going to get a little sciencey, and hopefully you'll walk away compelled to make some changes in the way that you approach your health, okay? So let me just really quick, hey Brandy, glad you're on. I want to make sure that I'm in the right spot, and I already can hear someone calling me downstairs. Hopefully they don't just come in and start talking to me. The weather is so much warmer here. We're here in Kansas City, and so everyone is outside. They're doing some cleanup, and we are also doing some hot dogs on the fire. So anyways, so that's what the kids are doing, and I'm up here locked in my bedroom and going to talk to you about taking good care of your gut, or what I like to call your elimination pathways. So last week we talked about reducing your toxic load. I actually had a ton of fun researching that topic, and I learned a lot of really cool things myself. And so we talked about how to get the junk out of the body, and so this week we're going to talk about how to, or I should say we talked about not putting the junk in our body. This week we're going to talk about how to get the junk out of our body that's been hanging out for many, many years of, you know, just poor choices in diet and, you know, health and stuff like that. So you will hear some overlap this week, and that's because I just want to give a really good foundation for this topic. And I'm actually trying to set myself up a little bit so I can see my notes a little bit better. So what I want to do is give a really good foundation before we dive into the way that you can use essential oils and supplements to support your body. So first I want to get on the same page. So remember, essential oils and supplements don't force your body to do something. So we usually try to go slowly and gently so the body doesn't have an uncomfortable experience. If you've ever done a detox or a cleanse, I've heard stories about how uncomfortable it was, and you know, needing to get to the bathroom often, or the massive fatigue that comes along with it. So everything I talk about tonight is in hopes to prevent that from happening. So to prevent an uncomfortable experience, and I just want to put it in like regular daily terms, it's like when you eat and drink water. So you don't drink all your daily water and eat all your intake of calories in one sitting. Although I'm sure sometimes we've tried to eat a ton of food all in one sitting, it's really not good for us, and it actually makes us not feel so good, because there's nothing worse than overeating and then feeling really sick afterwards and regretting that. So everything I go over today will be with the goal of supporting your body's normal way of eliminating toxins that have been hanging out in the body. So spring is the perfect time to do this, because naturally this is when you feel the urge to change habits and for the better. We often think it's a New Year's resolution, but it really should be a spring resolution. So if we go back to the wellness pyramid that I talked about last week, the top 2 levels are about self-care when we have a symptom. That is proactive and informed self-care. So like when we go to the doctor, when we would take, you know, a medication because we have an illness, or the way I used to do it, I would take, you know, a Tylenol for a headache. Now I use essential oils, but that's still a it's a proactive type of method of self-care. Take a thing when you have a symptom. So everything below that in the wellness pyramid is all about prevention. And basically, the reason why we do that is because a lot of the symptoms that we have are really a sign of something else So rather than waiting on the check engine light to come on, we want to focus on the regular oil changes. So preventative, making healthy decisions every day. And this is why I teach on using your essentials every day, essential oils every day, and drinking plenty of water, because that's something we do every day. So I'm not going to talk about what a toxin is tonight because I covered that really thoroughly last week. So if you haven't watched that, go back and watch that video from last week. What I do want to mention though are the toxins that affect the 3 pathways, the exposure pathways. That's the lungs, the GI tract, and the skin. So first we want to avoid the toxin. So that's what we talked about last week. And then we want to support our natural elimination functions, which is where our focus is going to be tonight. Okay? So the elimination pathways are like chimneys. We have a primary, which is our intestinal tract and our urinary tract. And then we have our secondary, which is our respiratory system and our skin. Okay? The concept that actually is often misunderstood and confused by a lot of other essential oil educators, and I've heard people say this as well, as you put an oil on your skin and oh my gosh, you get a rash, and that must be your body like trying to detox. Okay, so there's a little bit of misunderstanding happening here when that actually happens. So we need to remember that essential oils bring us to a place of balance. This is why people with opposite health issues can use the same oil and get positive results. So for example, I use Slim and Sassy to increase my appetite. My husband uses it to decrease his appetite. It creates that appetite balance for us. So nature does not force activity. It supports activity and restores it. So putting proper chemistry into the body actually moves our body towards balance. Now the problem is not everybody is prepared to move towards balance. So that brings me back to chimneys. So because when we work to eliminate toxins, we need to make sure that the chimneys are working properly, because they play a role in the removal of waste. Now, when these pathways are neglected, then the secondary pathways will take that overload on. So remember, the first ones is the intestinal tract and the urinary tract, and then the secondary is the respiratory and skin. So when the intestinal tract and the urinary tract aren't working, then our body tries to detoxify through the respiratory system and the skin, okay? So that's why we see skin rashes, or if you've ever used, I know this has happened to me, and not with doTERRA oils, but with other ones, where I had a cough or a breathing issue because of the particular essential oil. So when these, okay, let me get back to my notes. So the skin is often called the sympathetic chimney. It acts like a third kidney. And this is really important because what's happening is it's trying to remove waste that it's not meant to remove. That's why we have a skin expression. And so when this happens, we need to stop and examine. This isn't a reason to not use essential oils at all. It's just a reason to maybe use them differently and look at maybe what's really going on there. So we need to look inside the body. So now, what does that mean to us? It means that if we're going to do a detox, we really don't want to be moving waste through our skin. That does not sound comfortable. In fact, it actually sounds really disgusting. So if you've ever had a skin expression or an abnormal skin expression, then that's actually what's happening, is our body is trying to push waste through our skin. Little things start to show up. So we see people with psoriasis and eczema. Those are more extreme skin issues. Sometimes weird pimples in weird places and that kind of stuff. So that's basically an overuse of that chimney. So the skin, remember, it's a sympathetic chimney. So basically what's happening is when the kidneys aren't working, then the skin is like, oh my gosh, kidneys, I'm so sorry. Let me try to help you out. So it's volunteering for something that's not supposed to be volunteering for. So if you took an oil that got things moving, that should be moving, but isn't moving, then what you will find is that it's trying to find another place to leave the body. So it's basically creating a port. And even to the point of bleeding. And that's happened with some people. So for example, for women who have excessive menstrual blood, that could be an example of the body trying to eliminate waste in a way it's not supposed to. Because that's actually a result of the body trying to find a chimney. So what we need to do is think preventatively. We want to open up the chimneys of elimination to make sure everything is moving so we don't use secondary chimneys excessively. You don't want your respiratory system moving waste. It wasn't designed to move either. If you have a lot of congestion in your skin or in your respiratory system, the first thing I suggest you do is take care of your main chimneys. This is going to be really important so you have a happy experience. We talked about that when we talked about lifelong vitality last month, and I've mentioned on and off Terrazyme, which I'm going to explain again this evening. So the other thing to know is that your liver doesn't have a door. What it's designed to do is if you have your liver, it has two ways that it eliminates through your kidneys and your digestive tract, your GI tract. So it goes those two ways. It just depends on what the waste is exactly. So door number 1 for the liver is the bowels. So that's what I was just saying. Door number 2 is the kidneys. And then door number 3 is the skin, which is always the backup plan. It's really important to know your body always has a backup plan. So you want to make sure you understand that principle. I get a lot of questions about people or why people start to push waste out through their skin when they start using essential oils. So not only can these be answered, but they can be prevented. It's just that things are done out of order sometimes. That's why I talk a lot about drinking a lot of water, because essential oils need water in order to move in and out of tissue more effectively, so they don't hang out in one location. Okay, so let me go to the GI tract. We're going to talk about that for a second. Okay, so the GI tract, I'm going to show you a picture because I think we all know what a GI tract looks like. Okay, so there you go. You have all your intestines there and your colon and all that good stuff. So the main function of the GI tract is to metabolize the food that we eat and extract or excrete the waste that's coming out. So it also plays a major role in absorption as well. Unfortunately for many people, this system tends to be experiencing less than optimal function. And we see that through digestive issues. I hear about it all the time, and that's why I talk about Digest Zen. So the body must be able to distinguish between substances that it can use and substances that it can't use. To accomplish this, the GI tract serves as a selective barrier that strictly regulates absorption. This prevents toxins from entering the blood and the lymph systems. And then the small intestines is your body's main place of absorption of vitamins, minerals, fats, proteins, and carbohydrates. The large intestine is responsible for absorbing excess water from waste products and handling the indigestible substances such as fiber. The surface area of your intestines are equivalent to a tennis court. Okay, so huge surface space that you've got going on there. So inside of your intestines, you have these little finger-like things. They're called the villi. And then on that are these other cells, and then the microvilli. So it's like these fingers, and then there's like these little fingers that come off of the fingers, okay? So lots of surface. The food falls down in there, and then that's how your body absorbs nutrition. So it's really vital to keep all of that open so it can function properly. And so all of that has to do with absorption of nutrition and preventing the toxins from coming into the body. So our first thing for proper elimination that we're going to use, so we talk about lifelong vitality, and the next thing is Terrazyme. How do we use it? Okay, so actually I have a bottle of Terrazyme for you right here. It's almost empty. And the instructions on here actually say serving size is 3 veggie caps. You can take, and actually sometimes I take up to 2, so you can take 1 to 3 capsules with meals, so you can take quite a bit. And so it just depends. If you have a lot of symptoms of poor gut health, you may take more, you may take less. If you're not sure, start with 1 and work up. I actually take 2 on an empty stomach because And let me explain how Terrazyme works, because this is actually something I think is really cool. So when we eat food that is not cooked, so live whole foods, so there are enzymes in that that are designed to help our body digest that stuff better. But then you eat something cooked, like you eat that cheeseburger or that juicy steak or maybe that pizza, okay? So those things don't have enzymes in them. Now, a little trick that I've learned, if you eat live whole foods like a salad, like a really good healthy salad with all the colors in it, about 30 minutes before a meal, you're actually introducing digestive enzymes into your body to prepare way for the food that can't digest on its own. So Terrazyme actually fills the role of that salad, those vegetables that you should be eating first. So if you're gonna have like a green smoothie, you don't need this, okay? But if you're having that steak dinner with that baked potato and that roll, yes, you're gonna need this. So about 30 minutes before your meal, you can take 1 to 3 of these, and you can do that at every single meal. And so what that's doing is, by adding those digestive enzymes into your body, it's actually going to help support the metabolism. It's going to support the stimulation of the gut to keep things moving. It's going to help your body actually absorb the nutrition that's in the food. And so if you don't take it, and this is what's happening to us when we're eating food that's not, that's cooked, is our body is converting metabolic enzymes over to digestive enzymes. And so then what happens? We have a slow metabolism. We're losing that stimulation in the process of the digestion process, okay? So that's why we need Terrazyme. Terrazyme is going to prepare the way and help open up those elimination pathways. We talked about the little villi. It's gonna help to move that stuff out of the system so it's not sitting in there and getting gunky and gross and undigested. Sorry if that's TMI. Okay, so I talked about how the liver is here, and we've got the kidneys and the colons over here, and the liver doesn't have its own chimney, so it uses one of those two, or it has the third, which is the skin. So what does the liver do exactly? So it's actually the king of the body. It's kind of like the kitchen of the house. Everything happens in the kitchen. The kitchen is so important. If you've ever done a kitchen remodel and you didn't have your kitchen, it's like life-changing. So your liver actually is that thing for your body. It stores nutrients, it detoxifies. It actually has about 500 different jobs. So if your liver isn't working well, it's not doing those jobs really well. Gosh, it kind of sounds like being a mom. How many jobs do we have as a mom? And imagine when mom is sick, what happens? Kids don't get good meals, schoolwork's not getting done, the house is in disarray. I mean, that's basically the purpose of the liver, is to kind of play the mom role, keep everything in line. And so we want to make sure that it's taking good care of itself. Also, another thing about the liver is it completely regenerates itself. And I think that's actually the coolest thing about the liver, is that it goes away and it comes back. It's just constantly regenerating, which is why people can get liver transplants and their liver can grow back a little bit. So now that we've done the prep work, we've talked about lifelong vitality before, we're talking about Terrazyme. We do have another thing I'm not going to talk about tonight because it's not available, and that's the Zendocrine Complex. It's an herbal complex, and it's just designed to gently open up all the elimination pathways. The reason why I'm not going to talk about it is because that's actually not a product that's available right now, because we're currently looking for a sustainable way to source some of the ingredients that are in it. Because remember, doTERRA is super responsible, and we don't want to do anything that could ruin the conservation of some of these amazing plants. So we are waiting for that to be sourced sustainable so that we can actually start selling it again. So I'll talk about that one later. So now that we've talked about the prep, let's talk about how you actually do it. So the first thing is the Zendocrine Essential Oil Blend, and I'm going to break this one down. This actually has, so it's a blend, remember, and it's got tangerine, juniper berry, cilantro, geranium, and rosemary in it. So let me explain what these are good for. So tangerine oil is basically to help your cells remember to behave themselves. It's kind of like the mom look, your kids are out of line and you give them that look and then they fall into line. So that's what the tangerine oil does. It's a preventative for abnormal activity in the cells. and it's a fantastic detoxifier. The second oil is juniper berry, and this is for the kidneys. It is super supportive of the urinary processes, so you can actually alone, you can apply it to the back where the kidneys are. And then we have cilantro. This is famous for chelation. Chelation is the process of getting heavy metals out of the body. And so what they have learned is that 420 milligrams per day of cilantro help to chelate the body levels of mercury and lead. So cilantro is a pretty good essential oil. So as a preventative, we would want to consume cilantro to prevent a accumulation of heavy metals in our body. So I actually like to use the herb as well as the oil in the Zendocrine blend. Okay, so the next one is geranium, which is really good for the heart. It's emotionally supporting. It's good for the liver, the gallbladder, the pancreas to maintain normal balance of insulin, and it's wonderful for the hormones. And then I don't know if you've noticed, but the word Zendocrine sounds a lot like endocrine. And that's actually one of the things I want to point out. It's really good for the hormones, or I should say the glandular system. So it supports a hormonal balance in the body, and most importantly for us women, supporting the hormonal balance there. So rosemary, that's the last oil in there, is famous for mental function, preventing mental fatigue for the adrenals and preventing adrenal fatigue. It's also helpful for men to prevent inappropriate levels of deoxytestosterone, which is a type of testosterone that's known for causing male pattern baldness. And it's also helpful for prostate inflammation as well. So I don't know if you've noticed, but a lot of the wording that I'm using talks a lot about prevention. So remember, we're all about prevention here. So overall, Zendocrine is supporting the liver, it's the kidneys, the endocrine system to detoxify that system, which is our goal. Now, and this is also the third phase of our detox. So that's pretty much, so like I talked about, lifelong vitality, Terrazyme. Now we have Zendocrine coming in. That's the third phase. And you can actually take this on a soft gel. It comes in that, or you can add the oil to a veggie cap. I like the soft gel. For smaller people, you can use it over the liver or on the bottoms of the feet. It's also a great blend for times when maybe you've had a little bit too much to drink and you don't want the uncomfortable experience the next day. So let's see here. Okay, I talked about how to use it. Okay, so we're done with that one. Okay, so now let's talk about the 30-day cleanse experience. So by using what I've talked about so far up until now, our goal is to create a more comfortable experience so really you don't know that you're doing a cleanse. Now the next thing is the GX Assist. And the GX Assist, actually, I don't have a bottle of that, but we get that confused usually with PBSS, which is a probiotic. So they're actually step 1 and step 2. So GX Assist and PB Assist, let's think about spring. Let's say we're doing yard work right now, and I was pulling weeds, okay? I was along the side of the house pulling all those weeds up, and the reason why is because I wanted to pull the weeds up so the good stuff could come up. So after pulling weeds, I had all these bare spots. Now I have a choice. I can, plant new grass seed, or I can leave it bare. So the GX Assist is pulling the weeds, okay? So if you have a lawn full of grass, you got some weeds poking up, pull those weeds. And then the PB Assist is the grass seed. You're filling in the holes so that no more weeds can grow up. Because if we do a cleanse and our body gets all that junk out of our GI tract, but we don't put anything healthy back in it, then what's going to happen? It's going to start to fill back in with all that junk and bad intestinal flora. So we do the GX Assist first for 10 days. And then when that's over, then we do the PB Assist. So we pull the weeds, we plant the grass seed. Now, if you're just using PB Assist, which is the probiotic, that's basically like going out to your lawn in the spring, actually more like the fall is when you do it, and throwing down that grass seed to crowd out the weeds that are going to come up in the spring. So PB Assist is something you can use all year round. And the cool thing about PB Assist is that, I'll show you because I got it here with me. So this capsule is double capped. Okay, do you see that green in there? And then I don't know if you can see it, but there is a liquid that's surrounding the green. So what is happening here is really cool. And there's a lot of confusion about probiotics, and I won't claim to be a probiotic specialist, but this particular one is really good at making sure that we're getting the probiotic that's in here. We're actually getting it in the right spot. So usually what happens when we take a probiotic, our stomach acids end up actually destroying that probiotic. So we see that even in probiotic type foods, like fermented foods, we see that as well happening. There's only so much it can pass through, but for the most part, most of it's used up in the stomach. So by putting this in a double cap, what that's doing is it's helping us to digest the first cap, and then the second one actually makes it into the gut. So it's releasing all that healthy probiotic fiber, probiotic flora in the lower GI, which is where it's really needed. And then the liquid that's around in here is a prebiotic fiber. It's basically bacteria food, and it helps give that some food so that it can flourish better than the bad stuff that's in the body. So that's how that works. Okay, so let me skip ahead because I went totally off plan. So let's talk about toxins for a second. So actually, I should mention Slim and Sassy. Another product to consider during your cleansing is the Slim and Sassy Metabolic Blend, because it's not normally considered a detox product, but it can definitely aid in that. And not only does this powerful blend help control appetite and boost metabolism, but it also helps manage the toxic load in fat tissue specifically that's released during weight loss. So if we talk about toxins, okay, I'm going to show you a picture here. You have your fat cells, and then you have your toxins. So your toxins come out of your liver and they go into your fat cells, okay? And the, so that's just another place. That's not what it normally does. So that's just another place that it puts its toxins when there's not an exit point. So fat is basically a storage point. So if you've ever felt like you're holding on to excess food storage, you know, you're feeling a little round in the belly, or there's just areas where you're not slimming down, what could be happening is that your fat cells are storing toxins. And so that doesn't make for more fat cells, it just makes for your fat cells to do this. So when you start to exercise and lose weight and your fat cells start to do this, they're actually pushing those toxins back out into the body. If there's nowhere for them to go, if those elimination pathways aren't working correctly, then they go back into the fat cells. So this is why people see weight loss, weight gain, weight loss, okay? And I know I've definitely experienced that just with like belly fat and just normal living my life. I'm not doing anything, you know, super bad for me. I'm also not doing anything super good for me. And so my body is just hanging on to some of that stuff. Okay, so many toxins are fat soluble. And so that's why the body handles them that way. And then when you actually have too much in there, it affects the immune response as well. Okay, so I'm not going to get too much into the Slim and Sassy because we've talked about it before. But one thing that I will say is that it does help our body push out the toxins in the fat, because Slim and Sassy is so targeted towards fat cells and metabolism. So it's like fat cells, stimulation, because that's what metabolism is. So you can use Slim and Sassy in the soft gel, or you can put it in water. I actually like to put a little bit on my tongue because that curbs sugar cravings and other bad food cravings. It also helps with emotional food cravings as well, so that's another thing I really like about it. Comes in a soft gel and it comes in an oil. So going back to the GI tract, it's important to know that 70% of the body's immune function is actually in the GI tract. So if you find that you're getting sick often, or because I used to have this problem where I'd cycle through a cold every month, and that's just a sign that something's going on in my gut. Right now, my 6-year-old is oftentimes stuffed up and congested. Well, she's the child that we've had to do detoxes on, and that just lets me know when she starts to get that cough and that really thick congestion up here, that just lets me know that something's going on in her gut. And so we have we've modified this process for her, which I can share. Actually, we're going to talk about later in the month. Hannah is going to talk to us about doing this modified for pregnant moms and children. Okay. I'm just going through my notes because I've talked about so much. We've just bypassed all of this information. Okay, so what I am going to share with you later on, I will post this in the comments, is this little chart right here. This is the 30-day renewal, and it talks about Lifelong Vitality, Slim and Sassy, Zendocrine, the Terrazyme, PBSS, and GXSS, and it's basically like a chart that tells you what to take, when to take. And you can actually get these in the Cleanse and Restore kit, or you can buy them individually. And there is a way for you to order these things and then get them at a discount by setting up your shopping cart with Lifelong Vitality and then adding in these particular things at a